Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese and welcome to the Scrapbook Showgram. With it being back to school time, and all the kids are basically back in school now, it seemed like a good time to talk about how to feature those school photos. Lots of comments on the website have asked about this. Could I please share ideas for school photos? So the scrapbook that we're going to make today, it does just that. It features school photos. This happens to be one that I'm creating for my niece, whose name, believe it or not, these are her initials. Normally you think of back to school on ABC, but hers is ABD. It's Allison Diane Brewer, so that's why I've decorated it that way. An apple is a theme that I always think of as back to school. Notice that the binding is actually, a pencil is being used, and I've shown before this style of binding where you use, I'll flip it over so you can see a hairband. Just a stretchy hairband is what's being used to hold and bind all those pages together. And in this case, the pencil just really fit the school theme. And when I open it up, inside, you can see that the first page is kind of like a title page. I've used notebook paper to write the title, and then I've used, these are Sizzix die cuts to do the glue and the crayon and the notebook paper, where I've put the name of the school she went to and the years that she was there. And then I created a formula. On this page, I always have her school photo, and down in the red circle, I've put where in the photo she is so that it's always easy to identify her. And then on the matching page that goes with the school photo, there's always her individual school photo, as well as an envelope that I've cut out of notebook paper so it seems school themed as well. And then inside, let me pull this up and I'll show you. Every year, her school had the kids fill out in their own writing their height, their weight, how old they were, where they, their address, or at least their city. I'll go ahead, and if I go into some of this was her first grade, but if I go into some of the other grades, I don't have all the grades in here yet, but here I've skipped to fourth grade. What I really like is this time, and in the next, I think her sixth grade, several of her years have this idea where it shows in her own handwriting, it has her closest friends, it has her hobbies and interests, it has what she wants to be when she grows up. I think she says, what is it? Oh, I love that. Her awards and achievements, she got the Liberty Award. Now, I'm not sure if it was Liberty or Library. I think it's probably one or the other. But, this one she didn't fill out what she wants to be when she grows up. But her favorite activity is stickers. Which just cracks me up. So the envelopes allow you to be able to take these pages out that show the interests and that kind of thing. I know this one is funny because it says that she wants to be, and this one it says she wants to be a model, and then you look at her height at that age. I think she was like 4 foot, I can't remember, pretty short. So it's so much fun to have, and to be able to chart the progress all through those school years. And I like having them all together in one book. I just think it makes it really fun to look and see the progression from year to year. Now, to start with, for the album that I created, I started with, this is going to be the front, or in this case the back cover, and the dimensions this way. The width is 8 1/4 and the length is 9 1/2. And I wanted, this is heavy cardstock, and I have a heavy cardstock red that is going to be the inside back cover. So I'm going to put adhesive. Now, I know I say this every time. I'm just putting enough adhesive to keep these two layers together long enough for me to show you how to build this. You want to put much more adhesive than that. Somebody asked me on one of the comments one time, somebody said, how much is enough? And I said, I usually do the whole perimeter and then an X and then even a few more around inside the X in order to get a nice good bond. Now, you need to look, here is what will be the back cover. And before we even get to the front cover, we need to look about where the binding holes need to go. I'm going to be putting page protectors, and the dimensions that I gave you are based off of the page protectors that I bought. I got a lot of page protectors here. It was a package of 10 for 50 cents. Whenever I see page protectors in a size that I like, I always grab them up. So in this case, if I lay this page protector down, you can see this is what dictated the size for my front and back cover. So if you have a different size page protector, then you would want a different size front and back cover. But the holes in the page protectors are spaced way far apart, and my spacing is going to be based on the stretchy band that I'm going to use. I'll bring this up. They do come in lots of different sizes. I just got these at Target. This is something else that I'll pick up when I'm at the store. I'm going to be using the red one, and if I lay these down, let me lay it down so I can show you on one where I've already marked it so you can see what I mean. I've already marked where the holes are going to go. If I lay this down, the distance in between needs to be just about what this stretchy band would be with it, just a tiny bit of stretch. So in my case, the distance between the two holes needed to be 2 3/4 inches apart. Now, in order to know where to put those, if I want them to be in the middle, I just started with the page protector and I folded it in half so I could see where the middle was. And if I mark the middle, if I went ahead with pencil and I marked the middle of this paper, then I need to figure out how far to go each direction in order for this to be 2 3/4 inches apart. That way they're equidistant. So once you've marked those, you're going to go back, and you only have to go to all this trouble for the first one. Once you have the first one, I'm going to go ahead and punch the hole. Once you have those holes marked and you have them punched, you can use this then as your pattern or your guide for punching all of the holes. So this is going to be the inside back cover. This is the back cover. I've already gone ahead and I've placed the red paper on the inside and cut matching holes for what will be the front cover. The only thing that's different about the front cover is if you look at the page protector, there's a seam where the pages are going to open. This happens to be 1 inch from the edge. So I need to come in 1 inch from the edge of my cover, and then using the scoring tool or the bone folder, whatever you happen to use, you're going to lay your ruler down, mark 1 inch, and then go ahead and create that score mark, which I've got on there. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this up so that that front cover will open easily. So I don't need to score the back cover because it's just sitting as a flat page, and all the inside pages are going to be these page protectors. So I really only have to do that on that front cover. Now to look at decorating the front cover, I'll bring my original back up so you can see the elements that we're going to be looking at. First of all, let's look at these. These are just Sizzix die cuts for an alphabet, and it's what's called a shadow box alphabet. So I'll bring this up so you can see how they look before they're attached. Here is the shadow for the A, and here's the A. And here's the shadow for the B, and then just a little bit further, here's the D and the shadow for that. Now I'm going to turn it over so you can see that I've got foam adhesive on the back. The placement of the foam adhesive is a really nice tip. If you put foam here and nothing here, what's going to happen over time as it sits like this, that valley is going to create a ridge, and it's going to show. You're going to end up having these dips that turn into almost like wrinkles. If you make all of the foam so it's only on one side or any other place you want to put it, it has to attach. This way, when it sits, it has a flat, even if this goes like this, there's no gap for it to actually want to fall and fold and crease into. So if I turn over the B, you can see I did the same thing. As long as this is attached and as long as there's enough to hold the whole letter up, I don't have to put anything on this end. And I did the same thing if you look on the back of the D. So while I have these flipped over, let's go ahead and remove the backing. I would actually remove the backing on the whole thing, but that's enough to hold it together to show you. So I'm going to go ahead and I would do the same thing so that the B and the D would actually also be attached, but I'm going to go ahead and make it quicker. I also raised it up a little bit before I stuck it onto the background squares. So you can cut the squares in whatever dimension is handy for the size of page protectors you're using, but they are just squares that I cut on the paper trimmer, and they're only cut 1/4 of an inch difference so that when they nest together, you just have this fine 1/8 inch border all the way around, which is perfect for what I wanted. Here's one that's already stuck together, and instead of just sticking it down, I decided that I wanted a little bit of foam adhesive So I'll take another piece of foam adhesive and I'll go ahead and place this on the back like so. Peel off the backing and attach this so that it's sitting sort of in the middle of that square. You would do the same thing with the B and the D. And then in order to get the apple, these were die cuts as well. And what I did was I cut one out of red and one out of green. I cut a deeper shade of red and went back and just trimmed a little pattern to make it look a little bit like a shadow. And I did the same thing with the deeper shade of green. Now, in order to put the two together, if I cut off this little green stem, it's not very big to have to stick down onto the green apple. It's easier to cut, I'll take my scissors and I'll do it. It's easier to cut the stem off of the red. You could raise it with foam adhesive, although I didn't. For this particular one, I just went ahead and put regular adhesive, and I'll place it onto, see if I can move everything else out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and line this up with the green, oops, and I have it sitting on blue. I can't see too well when I have it lined up correctly. Let me use my fingers. So when you have them lined up, now you have what looks like a solid die cut, and the back is one solid piece, which is kind of handy. Now I raised this up with just a little bit of foam adhesive also. So I'll take, this isn't a very big piece. I would normally put more than that. Let me see, let me find a little piece of this that I can cut. I'll put at least another chunk. Remember what I said though, now that I've got smaller pieces, oh, here's a bigger piece. Let me take this. But because I have one piece, if I put this over here, I'm for sure going to get a wrinkle in here over time. I need to have these attached together so that any of the, if it wants to, instead of creasing, it just eases out the sides. So I'll peel the backing off, and I would put this onto, you're going to have to pretend like, actually let me go ahead. It's easiest to mat the black onto the white before you attach the embellishment, whether it's an alphabet letter or the apple, because once you have the foam adhesive, if you turn this over and try to stick it down, you've now got to go over something that's got a big puffy thing sticking up in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead, and I like the idea when something sort of goes off the page. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this somewhat like so. Once you have all of these squares and it's time to place them on here, I find that it's easiest, and I usually sort of eyeball to make it look how I want it to look. I take a piece of a different color of paper, and since this is black, really anything but black, and I'm going to lay it down so that when it's lined up with this edge, and this is straight, I'm using removable tape to hold it in place. This is my guide for where I'm going to place those squares. Now for the bottom, I've done the same thing. I figured out about where I want the bottom to be, and I would do the same thing with the top, but I'm going to use this as a guide, and then I'll go back and I'll use this as a way of placing that first die cut. This isn't the right one to go here, but I would figure out that this is going to go potentially here. These aren't even embellished yet, but you can see how once you start figuring out, all right, this has to go here, and I want this space to match this space. Once you have this little sort of like T-square L thing happening, it makes it very easy to layer down all of those pieces. Now I'm going to go ahead and move these out of the way so that I can show you how to do some of those interior pages. The only other thing, let me bring this up and show you, the only other thing on here, you can see that I've gone ahead and I've used, this is a tiny apple, another die cut shape, and I've just handwritten with a white pen her name for this area. And then I have gone ahead and decorated these tags that I'm gonna actually wind them around the pencil. I'll do that, I'll get to that when we talk about the binding, but let's look for a minute at the inside. Basically the inside is a piece of black, and then it's the embellishments, but every other page has this envelope, and the envelope is one that I created just using a regular piece of notebook paper. Now I happen to have a die that I used an envelope die when I did Allison's, this is funny, these are her grammar school pictures, but I used the die from this for her wedding invitations. These were the envelopes for her reply cards. So I used a die to cut the envelope shape. If you don't have that, all you need to do is to take any envelope that's a good size for what you want to do, open it up, and then take it apart. Use that as your guide. Trace around it to mark your cut lines and mark also where the fold lines are going to go. And then go ahead, fold on the scores. I'll put, I can see that it's going to go here. So I'll put my adhesive just like where the adhesive would be, you know, on a real envelope to hold that shut. You get the envelopes which allow you to put the souvenir pages inside. But the neat thing about an envelope is it lets you pull them in and out so that you can read them, see all the information inside. I would then, of course I wouldn't do this, I would pull this out and do the decorating of this on this page while it's loose. You would go ahead and fasten that into the interior pages. The other elements that I used on the page just to kind of tie in with, this happens to be the notebook page and a pencil, and I've done sort of the same thing on this page. It also relates back to this cover page where I trimmed off the edges of what was the pencil to turn it into what looks like a crayon. These are also all just Sizzix die cuts. So when you have the interior pages created, we still have to look at creating the holes in the page protector in a new position. Here are the holes that came in the page protector way too far apart for the size of the stretchy band I'm using. So I've used my guide. Remember, we used, once we made the first one, it became the guide to mark where the holes are going to go. Now, if you've ever tried to cut through plastic, it is not fun. I don't know why. I think it's because it slides around. So I discovered that all I have to do to make it work well is to go ahead and take a piece of like copy paper, cardstock, anything like that, and it just has to be a backing so that, let me see if I can do this from an angle where you can still see. I'll do this one first. I'm going to go ahead and put the paper in a position where it's sitting as backing, and then I'm going to slide in the punch and line it up, and I'm punching through the plastic, but I'm punching at the same time through the paper, and that makes it just punch beautifully. I'll go ahead and I'll punch the second hole because I want to show you how to do the binding, and I'm going to need to have a few of these pages ready to be placed in the book so that you can see how easy it is to do the binding. Once you've done all the interior pages, and once again you have to imagine that this is all fully decorated, we're going to look at the binding. Well, remember I said the binding is done with this pencil. It's going to be easiest to add this decoration to the pencil before you try to slide it in. So I'll start first with a pencil and make sure that you've sharpened it enough so that you have it the right length. You don't want it to be too long for the actual book that you're doing. I have these different tags. Some of them I notice are vellum, some are not. These aren't even exactly the same colors, but they're the same shapes. And I've used them to write the years she was in the school and to write the name of the school. But then I also took a little apple punch and I went ahead, punched out an apple out of green and out of red, and used this. I went back and added, this is where the tweezers really come in handy. I added green to the top. I'll bring this one up, put it right next to it so you can see. So I've just added a little bit of detail, and I'll flip it over. On the back is a little bit of foam adhesive. I'll go ahead, I'll peel off the backing, and I could put this on the blue, the green, I could put it on the blue. It doesn't matter. I think I'll go ahead and place it there. Like I said, you would have the other information on the other pages, but let me show you how you're going to attach this to the pencil. What I did, and there's probably multiple ways that you could do this. What I did was I took glue dots, and I don't know if you've seen me use glue dots before. Let me pull off a few here. And I'm going to place a glue dot. It's really hard to see because it's so clear, but it's sitting here on the plastic. I'll try to move it around so hopefully you can see that little circle. And all I have to do is place the glue dot onto that thing that I want it to stick to, and then pull it off, and now it's stuck on the pencil. Now I actually did that in multiple places around the pencil, and I use that as my adhesive. I decided how much slack I want this to hang with, and then I just started wrapping so that I was going right over those glue dots. Remember, I just did one here, but you'd have several on there, so you wouldn't have this loose. You'd have, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put one more glue dot so that I can see if I can get that last little area to stay long enough so that as we put this together, I don't have that piece up in the way. Where's that last one going to go? It's going to go to right about there. So I'm going to put this glue dot right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this and have it catch. Now, I would then do the same thing. I would go back and I would add the other elements on as well, so that when I bring it up, you can see you've got, you know, much more of this. This is embroidery thread that I've used. You can use string as well, but because I've got 3 of those, you're going to do the same thing with the other ones as well. I've got some glue dot exposed here, so hopefully as I try to put this together, it's not going to want to stick. Normally you'd have all of the string so that it covered up all of your glue areas, because you don't want the glue to actually be exposed. So once you have that ready, then you're going to take the front cover, which would all be decorated. You're going to have interior pages. I have this one that I just punched. Here's another one, and I've got like what looks like notebook paper that I've punched. And I'm going to line these all up. Now, because they're page protectors, sometimes they want to slip all around. I'm going to see if I can do this without clipping it together, because it's just faster. What I want to do first is I want to take the stretchy band and I'm going to bring it up from the back through one of the holes. So I'm going through, oops, let me pinch this with my fingers first. And I will line up the pages. And if it doesn't want to line up, if I just take a pencil and poke it back through, it will line those holes back up. You can see it starting to stick through. You're going to pull it up and then take the pencil that now you have to imagine that it's got 3 of these little doodads hanging, and I'm going to slide it down. But before I slide to the final position, I'm going to take and, oh, I need to show you my handy dandy tool. This was a paper clip that I opened up, and I'm going to use this. It's helpful in stretching this band around so that I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to pull this around. You notice that I've caught it in the hook. I'm going to slide this through, and then I'll bring the whole thing up through this hole. Take my pencil and slide it into position. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this where I want this. Slide the pencil all the way down. You can see how now it's going to hold those pages together in just such a cool way. And of course, it's up to you how many pages you want to put inside. You know, it's so much fun to put all your school photos into one scrapbook that charts your growth and kind of your progress through childhood. You can go all the way to the teen years.